students, I show it friends if I need it. And the old books, I always look at them because my harpsichord is standing against the book, so while I practice, I can look at my books and say, ah, beautiful. And books have a smell as well. Huh?
Yes, exactly, exactly.
But
That is why. That is why I will buy new books on the internet, which I never thought I will, but I do now. Because new books don't really have a smell.
No.
They get a smell when they are in my house, next to, in the living room or in where I work or in the studio. But other books I cannot bring myself to. I don't like to read online. But yeah, I don't know, with books, I love to have books that I start all over and leave them in different places. So I know when I come to that place, I can find exactly where I was, and in a second it brings me back to where I was when I was reading it. And
yeah,
okay, we have 3 minutes before.
I need
Please,
books, and so if I leave them in Verona, for instance, then I might not come back in 2 months or 3 months, and so I need the book. So my problem is more if I buy books and if I read books, if I'm not at home, to get them back, because overweight is with me normally a big item. I have too many books always with me because I'm afraid that I don't have enough books with me to read. And as well, while I'm on tour, I visit some bookshops as well and find other things. So I have to get it back to Holland.
I have friends in different parts of the world, and most of them are booksellers of secondhand. Obviously, for me, the capital of secondhand bookstores is still London. Tottenham Court Road, you have all those fantastic books where you go, and every level of, they say, I remember the first time I came to one store, the guy asked me, are you looking for something unique or for something to your liking? And I liked it very much, because really uniqueness in books is not that important for me. It's the interest. It's something that catches me. It's very easy for a book to catch my interest, so I'm not...
you know, for me, because I look for certain books because I need them, and I read about it, or I know they exist, and I really try to find the original of it, and then, of course, read it. And so I have a long list of books which are still on the way to try to find it. I have a librarian who is taking care for my library because it's a big library, and so I sometimes give her little notes, because I'm not a person for computer, as you saw, to say, can you go on the web and see if you can find it?
Yeah, I know. Well, you can find a lot of things on the web. The web really is it's a fantastic treasure hunt, because if you are not looking for something particular, it's much easier to get satisfaction from the net, because there's so much there, and there's so much that can surprise you. I found sites where people share their collections. There are people that have old collections, for example, of music stands. There's a site, a Korean site. The origin is Korean, but they have people from all over the world, and they have different collections of music stands, you know, starting from the 17th century. And don't ask me what is so special about it, because, but it's like, you know, if I find a book from the 18th century, I'll just buy it, not because I know why, I don't know. So, and I never thought that anybody had a collection of old music stands. So there's a lot of interest for me, in the internet. What we're going to do now, everybody, well, first of all, good evening and welcome to U-Sophia, where minds meet online. Where today I'm very glad and honored to have with us Tom Koopman, And we are going to first start going very fast through the music that we're going to have. Ton, I have to take back the presentership because otherwise I can't do anything. So just a second, excuse me. Okay, here we are. Just for a second. As I said before, the technique that we have here is not everything that I want it to be. It is going to be slowly, slowly. So first of all, good evening to everybody, and just a couple of technical things. If you want to talk, everybody is going to be muted during the conversation with Ton. If you need to say something and you want to talk, just press on raise hands. If you press on participants now, you will see that at the bottom of participants, there is a thing called raise hand. And if you see that and you want to say something, just raise your hand and we will give you the possibility to talk, of course. For everybody that has a camera, there's a little thing that is called send video. Normally it should be above my picture. Now, later it'll be above Ton Koopman's picture. A little thing, I think, Lorenzo, you should be able to see that. I don't know if you have, Lorenzo, if you have a camera or not, but I see that you are here with us. If you can, just hi Laurentio. We have Laurentio and we have Lorenzo. So it's two similar names but different origin. So I'm just going to go very fast over the music so that we start downloading the music for everybody, and when we get to it, it will be ready for us. Don't look at what we're going to have because it's all, of course, a big surprise. And unmute yourself and then you can talk. Okay, now Ton should be again our presenter. Okay, fantastic. Let me see if I can still, no, I can't do it. Ugh. Okay. Every time I learn something new here, but okay, there's locked video. Unlock video. Okay, here we are. I'm trying to, I won't be able to go on here, so I'll have to take it back here, and I just need you in the first minute. I'm sorry about all those games, and there's not something that I'm trying to play, but our technical team here is changing things much faster than they tell me about them, so I have to be here just to go and start going through the pages. So thank you very much for being so patient, Ton.
Yeah.
Okay. I promise it will not happen again. Okay, here we are. You are in control now, Ton. You can do anything you want with everything. So whenever you feel like it, just please, can you see where it says 03? Above the presentation, there are numbers there. Can you see it?
Participation 10 of 10 ready, you mean that?
On the left-hand side, it says a short biography.
Yeah.
This is something okay. Above that, there are numbers, 03.
Yeah, 03, yeah.
Okay. If you, when you press on the right-hand arrow, it will take you to the next page. Can you see that? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. And please go another one, please, and then we'll start. Okay. We don't need to look at that. It's just that we are on the right page, all of us. So, first of all, thank you very much for being here with us, Ton, tonight. We started talking a little bit about something that yesterday was defined by Tini, not by myself, your Musikfabrik. Um, when did you establish your Musikfabrik? When did it all start?
No, I mean, it's more the word of our kids who felt that when Tini, my wife, was practicing harpsichord, and I was practicing harpsichord at the same time, that it looked like a fabric. It's just too noisy. Everything is going on the same moment. And can you close one door, please? Then we hear a little bit more from the other one. So otherwise, it's just unbelievable, all the noise here. But yeah, when you think, when did I start making music? Of course, that's a long time ago. I started, but it was not yet a fabric, but it was just being a student. I was, when I was 11 years old, I became an organist in a little church, and then in a bigger church when I was 14, and I went to conservatory, I went to university, and then slowly things happened. I started my first Baroque orchestra. I started to play with friends, TV music, made my first CD, and so it's LP, I have to say. So slowly things went on, and it was just nothing was on purpose. It happened, and it was nice.
But what did music mean to you? I mean, when you are 11, is it a ticket to a different world? Is it something that is it like a toy? Do you feel well because people listen to you? What was music for you?
I was singing in a boys' choir in just a church, and for me, from the very beginning, I enjoyed music. I thought it was so beautiful. I looked at the amateur organist who played with hand and feet, and I was just astonished that this was possible, that you could do that, that you could play so loud. And so music was fascinating me from the very beginning, and I was a boy trouble, particularly singing loud, and I don't know if I sang so beautiful. But I enjoyed every time when we did different music, when we did Bach, when we did Palestrina, it was the Catholic Church. When I heard the organist playing, and he was always playing at the end of the church with tutti, with all the stops on the organ, very loud. And I was dreaming if I could sit there once.
But your dream came true when you were 11 for the first time?
Yeah, it was a little cloister, where a little abbey church where the organist died just before Christmas, and they knew that I just had piano lessons, and they said, why not you come to play, because better a organist than no organist. And so they were very friendly to me, so I went. I could practice the organ anytime I want, so it was for me a fantastic moment to be there and to enjoy this little instrument and to play and to learn just without knowing anything, because I didn't have any lesson. I went every year to the teacher at the music school for kids and asked him, could I have organ lessons? And he looked at me, at my leg, and said, you're too small, you cannot reach the pitch. Yes, I can be. But he said, no, it's not true, you're too small. And when I was 16, finally, he said, okay, now we could try to start organ lessons. But at that point, I had already, as an autodidact, learned to play many of the big Bach works.
When did this, you know, there's a kind of a tradition that was created in the Western world to call two cities twin cities. In my book, there are quite a lot of twin musicians. Fabio Biondi, for me, is a twin Vivaldi. But there's nobody who is a twin Bach like you are. I mean, yes, I love Herrewege and everything, but when did it begin? When did this fascination? Is it more a musical fascination, or is it an intellectual fascination?
I remember that being a boys' trouble, on Cecilia Day, there was always a little party, and as well for the boys, although there was not the drinking what the men after that did. It was interesting to see that they had at some point a movie about Bach. I'm certain it's a very dramatic and sentimental movie. But for me, I love this movie to see it. And the interesting thing was as well that with me, the boys' choir, there was one more boy who was very interested in music. He didn't become a musician, but he loved music as well. And I think when you start so early with that, of course there are some composers which you like more than the others. For me, the 19th century was never important. Composers of the 19th century, we were singing sometime music by Bruckner. It was not my music, but Handel, Bach, yes. And as well, Holland Lasso, because in the Catholic Church, of course, a lot of Palestrina Lassus was sung, and we had a good music director who really loved this music and really was fighting with us to get it in tune and to get it well done. And so things started, and of course when I started to play the organ, of course Bach was the first choice. It's still my first choice. And when you talk about my colleagues like Philippe Herrewege, we know each other well. We did a lot of concerts together, and we judged each other's music making, although we are different people, and which is good as well. And we never know, we never know what Bach liked more. Of course, I try to do my best, but my colleagues, my good colleagues, do the same. And maybe at the end, Bach liked them more than me. Who knows?
Well, for a long time, I still am a big admirer of Leonhard, of Gustav Leonhard, who for the first time, for me, as a listener, gave a new sense to Baroque music. Because before that, when I used to listen to Baroque music performed in what was then called the classical way, for me, it had something dead about it. It wasn't alive. And the first time I heard, I think I heard Gustav Leonhard play the Goldberg variations, if I'm not mistaken. I think he played it in more than one recording, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it was a word that I then heard you use once. It was dynamic. And the tremolo, all of a sudden, the clavichord became, for me, a surprise, because it was not something metal, dead. All of a sudden, it was live and very dynamic, much more than actually the piano. What do you play the piano?
No, no.
You
I
don't?
even don't like the piano, so it's very easy. But I can give an answer on that feeling what you had with Gustav Leonhard, who was, by the way, my teacher, my only harpsichord I ever had in my life, is that he started to play on good instruments. Before, people, harpsichord players in the 30s, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and even later, played on kind of harpsichords with an imitation of a piano almost, with a metal.
Very thin, like tin.
Yeah, and so the harpsichord didn't have volume, but particularly didn't have beauty. The historical instruments had much more beauty than those machines, I would call them. And Leonhard was the first in Europe to play on those instruments. In America, there were already a few people starting it, and he was doing it superbly, really very beautiful. And I feel the interesting thing of Leonhard was as well that he brought, next to feeling, intellectual side of Bach there. So when he was playing a fugue, there was really an analysm of the piece there. And before it was more emotion. And he started as well to look at treatises, to know how did people play it before. Because I think that's an important thing of early music now, that we try to understand, we try to step in the shoes of somebody from the 18th century, or like Bach or somebody else. And we all know that we will never be Bach, because it's blasphemic to think that. We are too stupid to be at the level of Bach, or such a great composer. And we live in a beautiful way because they worked very hard and maybe earned less money than we do. But nevertheless, you should give as much as you can the composer the right to get his music performed as he or she wants. And Leonhard started with that, to say there are musicologists who read everything. They are not players, There are players who play everything, but they don't have enough knowledge. And that's one of the major things I learned of Leonard. Try to be both. Try to be musician and musicologist. And don't play like a musicologist, but play like a musician. But know what you do. And I think then playing on beautiful instruments, he started to play on Scottronic instruments. Of course, that was a revolution in harpsichord making.
But it's since then that harpsichord, for me, stopped being something very flat. It had ups and downs all of a sudden. And I heard that you once said in an interview, I cannot remember where I read it, you said that for you the harpsichord is a dynamic instrument, whereby the piano is not. The piano for you is a little bit more flat than the harpsichord. And I must say, there are very few musicians that give me that sensation still today. I don't know if it depends upon also the instruments, maybe, because I do know that it's quite difficult for a harpsichord to travel. I remember once I saw in Israel the Europa Galante, and they wanted to bring their harpsichord to Israel to perform, and it just didn't make it. It broke because of the difference in humidity, and they found an instrument in Israel, and they cursed a moment and said, "It doesn't have any life. It's dead." What kind of instruments are available today for the clavichord player? Are they like the violins or the harpsichord?
No, you know, it's a very different story. There are harpsichord players who love a special maker, and some others who play on everything which is available. I'm the person who, if I can, I let my harpsichord, which is, by the way, Koopman, transport as fast as possible. If I play in Japan, I have former students there, so I know I will have a Koopman to play on. In a place where I don't have a nice harpsichord, I will try to...
Sorry, that's my dog.
I will try to have my instrument brought, but of course you cannot bring your harpsichord to America. It's too complicated. I know in Israel that when we performed there, it was quite easy to find an organ and a harpsichord. But of course my Koopman instruments are very dynamical instruments. They are instruments when, if you touch them slowly, if you touch them quicker, they give a different sound. You can really do something with upper notes, and yeah, for me, those are the most beautiful harpsichords existing in the world. He's not making any harpsichords anymore because he retired, but we have 9 instruments of his, and and so it's me and my wife, we use them, and we still love them. And many of our students try to get a Koopman, or they have already a Koopman, and now in this moment, if they want an instrument, they have to get it from the second-hand market, because he's living in South Africa and doesn't work anymore. But he was a Utrecht maker living in Holland, and he tried to really copy an historical instrument, and he went much further than anybody I know to do that.
The famous King Frederick, I think, had 15 of the first fortepiano, no? And he actually tried to make Bach become a fortepiano player, which Bach never became. He didn't like the instrument, I think.
No.
But how do you feel about the musical offering, which is based basically on the aria written by the king?
And we know that Bach played on the fortepiano at that point, but on this moment many people make the mistake that the fortepiano is not our piano, our Steinway, which we hear in the concert hall, but a different instrument, an instrument still close to the harpsichord. What Bach disliked, I would think, is that the fortepiano is still not an instrument to make counterpoint on. So if you write fugues, the harpsichord is much more adapted to let you hear the structure of the piece, and with the fortepiano is more difficult. And it's interesting that Frederick the Great, after Bach had improvised on the piano, and the king said, so he went to the piano, why not? as soon as he got the print of it, he gave it to his sister Amalia. Amalia was a student of Kirchberger, a Bach student, and because Amalia loved this old-fashioned music, this old music written for the harpsichord, and apparently for Frederick the Great, it was not too important, and particularly not his music, because his music was more the language of the sons of Bach, and even the sons of Bach were not too welcome.
Well, he used to call Bach the old Bach, no? He didn't even call him Johann Sebastian.
Because Karl Philipp was working at that point in Potsdam, so the young Bach was Karl Philipp, and the old Bach was the father who passed and, as they said, played without having the time to change his dress, and in his travel dress, he was going to perform for the king.
Tom, can I ask you please to go to page 7, so we start uploading the Goldberg variation. I cannot do it. Just press on. Oh, here we are. Okay. Yeah. Let's start talking a little bit about the Klavierübung, the concept of what stands behind the Klavierübung, the keyboard practice. Is it the same to try Klavierübung, and I go again back to the piano, or is it completely different when you do Klavierübung on the clavicembalo and on the piano?
No, basically, if I start in the morning to practice, I will do exercises. So you could say Übung in that word. But I think Bach with Klavierübung 1, 2, 3, 4. Of course, he didn't mean exercises like Czerny, but he meant to publish pieces which were a fantastic playing music, beautiful music to play, and you would certainly learn from playing that music. But so I think the word Übung is maybe too modest of Bach, and so he started publishing after one cantata, a second cantata, the Klavierübung 1, which is the 6 partitas for harpsichord. Then he published the second book, that was the Italian Concerto and the French Overture. Then for organ, Klavierübung 3, the organ mass, and then number 4, and there were the Goldberg variations. And of course, around the Goldberg variations, a lot of histories were built around this story that the count couldn't sleep well, and so Goldberg had to play for him.
But he wasn't that good a player, no? Goldberg was never.
He later became quite a good player, but he was much too young. So I think the title is a bit strange, and Bach never gave it the title Goldberg Variations. He just called it Aria with Variations, and then later everybody calls it the Goldberg Variation because of Goldberg being there with this Duke just to play for him, and maybe being sponsored to have lessons, etc. But I think Goldberg has nothing to do with the Goldberg Variations, and it was published maybe as a thanks, because he got the title of court composer in Dresden, and the person helping him out in his at his house, Goldberg was the harpsichord player, and maybe because of that, it's got the title Goldberg Variation. But I think we should officially call it aria, and what a beautiful aria, the 30 variations, and then you get the aria at the end back.
Aria da capo. So if you are kind enough, let me take it back from you a bit, and I will start the music, and then I'll give it back to you. Okay, here we go. So we are going to listen to the aria, and as Tom said, the aria gives way to a lot of variations, and then at the end we come back to the aria, and it's called aria da capo, which means aria right from the beginning again. So let me just make sure that everybody is listening. Yes, everybody is. So the aria from the Goldberg variation, played by Ton Koopman. Let's listen to it. Okay, we'll get back to our normal order. I'll just go to the next page. But I wanted, okay, I'll give you back the presentership. Just a second. Okay, here we are. Let me just explain this little ballet that I do here with giving you the presentership and me the presentership. Our technique is such that in the recorded session, we hear everything and we see everything, but the only person that we see in the recorded session is the person that is in the place you are in, Ton, now. And I think it's much more interesting to see you than to see me. I know myself too well. And so anyhow, what is the difference for you as a musician between the well-tempered clavier, the wohltemperiertes Klavier, and or the other educational pieces, the inventions that Bach wrote, and a complete piece, if I may say so, like the musical offerings or the Goldberg variations?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about masterworks, and when you talk about the inventions, you talk really about music to teach somebody to play harpsichord, to teach articulation, to teach the sound of the harpsichord. In this case, you cannot talk about anybody who's having lessons to learn the Goldberg variation, because it's too complicated for that. You should be a professional player to be able to do that. And when I said this Count Kaiserling, who was the person who apparently couldn't sleep well, this gentleman having Goldberg there, I'm not certain if Goldberg was able to play the music at that age already because he was too young. But if you hear already such an aria, and I mean, I know many people will play it maybe different than I do, but one thing is certain, it's an overture where you think, okay, I'll go to listen now for an hour, G major, G minor. What a pleasure, what a beauty of music, and particularly it's so well written for the harpsichord. I mean, when you hear such a beginning, of course if you hear it on a piano, some people might like it much more on the harpsichord, but the limitation of the piano is that you can play too loud and too soft, so you can do anything with the dynamic that you want. And on the harpsichord, you have to make the dynamic, because the dynamic is not by itself there. You have to do it with your fingers. And if you listen then, you see that I add quite a bit of little embellishments, little trills, etc. Because on the harpsichord you need that to make your language possible, to make the line of the music not in little segments, but really that you make a bigger line over the music. And with all the ornamentation, which is, by the way, Bach was attacked, that he was writing all the little notes which you should improvise. The interesting is that Bach did not write all the small notes. He just wrote more of the small notes than most composers from the time. But nobody at that time was that genius to write such complicated music like Bach did. And I can imagine as a composer that you wanted to control what was happening. When I add little ornaments, tiny things, of course that's a personal choice. It's the choice which is in between the style of playing in the 18th century, and I'm sure there were people who played less trills than me, less ornaments, like in our time, and there were people who played maybe more. I know manuscripts of Bach's music, but there are so many ornaments that I even would not be able to play it in the tempo which indicates. If you see Allegro di molto, it's just too complicated to play that. Maybe there were two different stadia in that case. Maybe the teacher, we don't know who it was, say if you want to embellish this line, you do you sort of a slower tempo than Allegro di molto, because it was giving exercise, and he just gives the exercises for a few bars, and that's it. And but I think it belongs to the language of the harpsichord to ornament and to try to do it as good stylish as possible. But on the violin, you can play mezza di voce, you can play. Yeah, I'm back. You can play you can play ornaments. You can play decrescendo, crescendo, and it all is necessary to translate that to the harpsichord. So if you do it on the violin, you can of course do more than on the harpsichord. On the recorder, maybe you can do less. And so we are in between, and with all information we have about playing historical music, we try to be as close as possible to what I think is the way people played at that time.
Alfred Brendel used to say that for him to start a day without playing 1 hour of Bach is not a good day. He said he's very afraid of playing Bach for the audience because he doesn't believe that his friendship with the piano is a good friend to playing Bach. Angela Hewitt, of course, says completely different. Angela Hewitt plays much less a rococo style than you do, although she plays it on the piano, of course, which is completely different. But the decoration that you put into the Goldberg, and I also heard you in the musical offering, are quite unique. I didn't hear anybody else put as much into it. And yet it doesn't become soft. It doesn't become sweet. It doesn't become rococo. It stays.
Because it should not be rococo. It's not music from the rococo time. It's music before. But you should use all possibilities to play the harpsichord dynamically. And I would say the other way around. When I say I'm not such a friend of the piano, I know Angela Hewitt well, and I know many people. I have to admit that there are recordings made on the piano of music of Bach, which are so musically and so played at the heart that we harpsichord players should really think about. If we criticize pianists and say we don't play Gershwin on the harpsichord or Shostakovich or I don't know what, even Beethoven, we should see it as well as a mirror. If people are able to convince others that playing on the piano Bach's music, are we able on the harpsichord to do it? Are we using enough means, enough of the language of the harpsichord to be really next to the pianist? Because what I see on this moment, when you think for radios, France Musique for a long time had a lot of early music. On this moment, many of the early music programs have piano in it. It's normal now for some pianists to play William Byrd, to play Sweelinck. When I was a student of Leonard, that was a curse to do that. It starts to be normal again to do that. Does it mean that we are not convincing enough the audience listen to this music? I hope it's not true, but it means we have an important job to do. And I would say that as well to young colleagues, to students, take care. If it's harpsichord music, defend it well. Don't think it will come by itself. No, you have to do something with the music. And even if you do it in your personal way, we can never imitate Bach. He was too big a genius to think I can play like Bach. I don't believe that. We could play as a good contemporary player at that time. Maybe like Goldberg, maybe a bit better. Hopefully not like Kirnberger, because I'm not a friend of his. But maybe Beutel, who is a bit mad, who was mad, maybe it's the sons of Bach. We are hoping, that's my idea of playing Bach, that somewhere there's a little space for me in between all the students. I think none of them was able to imitate the master in a better way than he played himself. So let's not try that. Then we are like a painter on Sunday. But let's try to understand the style and to be a good contemporary musician who might do something different than Bach would do. Maybe he would smile and think, oh, he plays too much ornaments, or he doesn't play enough ornaments. And to give an example, in Washington, in the library there, is a print of the partitas of the first Paviron, and in that print, in two of the partitas, the C minor number 2 and the A minor number 3, Bach himself changed in the plates the music. He changed the composition, and he added in 2 partitas more than 300 ornaments. He added them. It means it was apparently important for him as well to have ornamentation. It was him who wrote it, and very nice to see that. And of course, I'm glad to see that apparently ornamentation, Bach felt as well that it was an important part of our musical language on the harpsichord. And if you play that, many of them are ornaments which I would add if Bach had written them, yes or not, because it feels so logical to play them. And sometimes an ornament is coming out of your fingers before you think about to what shall I do? It's already there. And let's hope that that was a normal thing, but certainly in Bach's time, not everybody played the same way. Not even everybody played like Catherine Manuel Bach or Willem Friedemann, and even the sons under each other were different plays, all coming from the same master. We know from a letter of Bach that Bach performed several times for his students the Welthimmelsklavier, the Gobe variation. We don't know how much time he had to practice because he was in his 50s. But anyhow, it's an interesting thing that he played for his students to tell them his music. And when you make a comparison then with Froberger, the composer in the 17th century, Froberger didn't allow people to copy his music. He didn't want to publish the music because he said, people are just destroying my music. They are just playing my music not the way I want to do it. If you want to play the music, you have to learn it note by note. And it's interesting, Duchesse de Montbéliard, his last student, is in contact with a Dutch writer, a Dutch poet, statesman, Constantijn Huygens. And Huygens was in contact with Froberger. They often were exchanging music. He gave a piece to Froberger, and Froberger gave him pieces to translate them, to play them on the lute, because he's a lute player. Mm-hmm. And then Froberger is dead, and Huygens is asking again, please, can you give me some more music, because I would love to play this beautiful music on my lute. And then this Duchesse de Montbéliard is writing, I'm so sorry, our great master, my dear teacher, he died. Now we will never hear his music as he played it himself. And as you know, he found himself that if you didn't play and had lessons with him note by note, like a certain Mr. Müller in Köln, you would not have any idea how to perform. That's a sad story for us, because we play Froberger. I play Froberger, and many of my colleagues play Froberger. Beautiful music, but we know as well that it's a free style. And if you hear this, it could tell that maybe there's even sometimes a bigger gap between writing down and performing the music. How big is that gap?
What did Bach hope to find in Lübeck when he went to visit?
Yeah, I mean the story is
250 kilometers. I know whether it's true or not is, but the Abendmusiken were true, and but what was so big about Buxtehude? But for his music, which is
I think
probably
was the great old man of the music at Bach's time. Bach is a young musician, 20 years old, Buxtehude 70 years. Just to meet this important person, of course, was for Bach a dream. He had learned, we know that since a few years, he had lessons with Georg Böhm, and the first piece we know of Bach copying was the piece by Buxtehude. And an important source which was found by Michael Maul not long ago in Dresden, and which as well tells us some right notes of the music of Buxtehude, which is lost in the manuscript, the only manuscript we have of Johann Gottfried Walter. But Bach went there, I think not to see if Jorgen was interesting, at least to see if the daughter, the left daughter of Buxtehude was attractive enough to marry. I think that's a beautiful story, like there are so many stories. Bach was very engaged with Maria Barbara, so he didn't come there for that. He came there, I think, to perform in the Abendmusiken. Bach was a young, brilliant musician, and he was known outside where he was working, Arnstadt. And I think Buxtehude heard about him, and he was always inviting people for the Abendmusiken because he wanted brilliant musicians. And I think Bach got the invitation, but we don't have the invitation anymore, to come to play, not in the 5 Abendmusiken, which were normally every year there, but in the 7, because there were 2 extra Abendmusiken in 1705. The Emperor Leopold I died, so there was an Abendmusik especially for him, a memorial service. And for the new Emperor, there was a welcome our new Emperor. So there were 7 Abendmusiken, and I'm certain Bach came there to play, to perform, to play organ, to play, who knows, harpsichord, maybe to play another instrument because he was a good violin player. Who knows, he came to sing. We have no idea, but he was there, that's certain. And he stayed too long, that's certain as well. He came there in the middle of November and was of course supposed to be back at Christmas. So an organist who is not there at Christmas time is not the most loved person. And what I assume is that after the Abendmusiken, Bach went to Hamburg. We know that he knew Mattheson quite well. Mattheson was the bright new writer about music. He wrote many, many treatises, many important books. And Mattheson is the first to talk about Bach in any printed version. So important. I believe strongly that he met Handel there, because Handel at that time was in Hamburg, and everybody is talking about that Bach wanted to meet Handel, and he didn't have the chance. But I think we should say they wanted to meet him again, and that didn't work out because of what kind of reason we don't know. But I think he was in Hamburg, and a brilliant young guy like Bach and a brilliant young musician like Handel. Of course, Hamburg was too small not to meet each other. And so I think he went to the opera, he saw not only the musical Buxtehude, but of many other people, and had a fantastic time. He came back, and that was a bad shower what he got there, because the church authorities were angry on him that he was away and didn't even tell them, I'm so sorry, I won't be back with Christmas. But he was just away, and in February he came back and said, I'm so sorry. And then they were quite mad on him. And then the nice story that, of course, he went there to maybe marry the daughter of Buxtehude.
Who was supposed to be very ugly, no?
Yeah, but we don't know anything.
No, we don't know.
She was a pretty girl. And when there was an exhibition in 2007 in the Buxtehude year, I tried to convince the people who were making the exhibition to have a little portrait which is in the museum in Lübeck. A beautiful girl, very well dressed, intelligent, nice to look at, and to say, put that in the exhibition, which it did, but I wanted to have underneath the daughter of Buxtehude, question mark. But of course that was one step too far for the Germans.
Okay. We are now going into the hello Franco. Franco joined us. This is nice. I'm going to do our little trick again. I'm going to take over the presentership from you, Ton, so that I can start going into the toccata. Just a second. Okay. Here we are. Okay. Okay, here we are back. Now, the very famous toccata in D-moll has, for many people who are not, who are not really huge music lovers, when they hear the name Bach, they hear the sound of the toccata. Just very briefly, could you explain the difference between a toccata and a fuga? And also, I called this evening Ton Koopman ricercar, and obviously ricercar, in some cases, Bach still called his fugues ricercar, the seeking. Can you just give us a little briefing about the difference between the toccata and the fuga?
Yeah, toccata is a freestyle. It can be anything. There's no theme. It's just as you like it. The improvisation, the creativity of the composer or of the player. It could be a piece which is improvised, and it could be every time different. The fugue is a very structural piece. There's a theme which comes back in all the voices. There are little in-between between the theme. The theme is coming back. The theme could be back and forwards, could be twice as long, twice as slow. You can do anything that you want with the theme, but in a fugue there's one theme, or sometimes two themes, or even three themes if necessary. And you hear them all. They are all introduced to you, and then the genius composer Bach is doing what he likes. In the case of toccata and fugue, I think it's a piece under the influence of Buxtehude. It's a very early piece, and I know in Germany there's fashion to say it cannot be Bach, but since nobody is able to tell why it's not Bach, and say just it's not Bach, I think it's too vague to take it away from Bach's Opera Omnia. It's not only one of the most famous pieces that Bach ever composed, and everybody knows the toccata, the fugue a little bit less. So to take it away, we should be certain that we know the composer. And it's atypical for any composer, but the fugue of the chromatic fantasy of Bach is as atypical, and we are not doubting about that. So sometimes there are fashions, and I think the people doing that, they are on goodwill, but I think it's easy to take something away. It's easy to excuse somebody but not being a composer, but it's much more difficult to bring the real composer up. And so I think let's be extremely careful. As soon as a composition is said not to be authentic, fewer people are playing it, or people are attacked why you played it, or why it's put in the program under the name of Bach. I think a piece like the Toccata and Fugue of Bach, which I strongly believe is Bach, but should stay under his name till the composer who really wrote it is known. And I think it will never be found. It's an extremely special piece, but you should see it in the tradition of the Studio's Fantastico, Buxtehude's music, and the freedom which is there. And if you see all the tempo markings, which are extremely slow, extremely fast, it's a real young work of Bach. And the sources are not that young, but I think around Buxtehude's time, that's the time where we should think about this. And if you see some of the Buxtehude free works, there's something similar.
Yeah, but you remember about 30 years ago, Peter Williams came out with a very serious study, a study that could go any place, could go to prove that it's Bach, and he chose to prove that it's maybe not. He didn't say it's not, he said it's maybe not, but the study was quite brilliant, I must say. I don't know if you agree. You probably know about the Peter Williams.
No, I disagree, but we know each other well, so it's friends and colleagues that you discuss about. I mean, he came up with the idea that it was a violin piece.
Yes.
And I think the idea is brilliant, because it's using the open string, the A string all the time, which is of course not so typical for an organ. But we have pieces already by Scheidt, which are called in stilo violinistica. So it means I don't believe there is any borderline which is not allowed or not possible. And if you hear it played on a violin and not on a recording, but in a hall, then you understand that it was never a violin piece. It's like the D minor harpsichord concerto, the same thing brought up by many people as it should be a violin piece. Hear it on the harpsichord, hear it on the violin, and I think that your ears will tell you what's right or what's wrong. And maybe there's not a right and a wrong, maybe there are more possibilities there. I don't exclude that this D minor harpsichord concerto could be for violin, but it's not my dream to hear it like that. And I think for the D minor toccata and fugue, if you hear it on violin, in reality, you have to admit that you miss too much.
Well, a guy like Bach, who wrote a piece for almost every instrument that was known in his time, I find it a little bit difficult, just from the sense of timing, that he would waste his time to write the same piece both for piano, for organ and for violin. If I'm not mistaken, Peter Williams says that it's not only was written originally for the violin, but he discusses whether at all it is written by Bach. I don't find it important. One thing I did find in an old book, it was said that Vivaldi once said that ricercar non si perde mai. La fuga si cerca, ma non si ricerca. He was trying to say that the ricercar, seeking, is never lost. And the fugue, which is actually something that goes away, that runs away, never finds itself again. I don't know, but Bach actually did use the word ricercare in some of the more complicated fugues that he wrote, no?
Oh yeah, but I think for Bach the difference between ricercare and fugue is really small. So I don't think we should separate it too much, one or the other. Of course, the ricercare of the Musicalische Opera, he calls it uncertain.
Yes.
Uncertain reason, ricercare, but if I had called it fugue...
For the queen, for the king, yes.
Yeah, but I think in a certain sense of structure of pieces, there's no difference between ricercare and the fugue.
Okay, we're going to listen to the toccata in D-moll, the number 565 in the Bach work, played by Koopman, here with us at U-Sophia. take it back just a second so that I can go to the next page, and then I'll bring it back to you. What is... Okay, here we go. Give back to you. And... No, okay. Here we are. That was quite incredible. I'm sorry about the unintentional canon in the beginning, where we heard kind of an echo trying to play canon. It was because it's my fault. I did not mute you, Ton. So we heard the music from my computer, and together with the music from your computer. And when I did mute you, it stopped. We didn't hear it at the second part. But in the beginning, it's not Bach. Bach did not write this canon there. It's something that the computers invented. What I find almost every time I listen to this, and the many times I saw it performed, is the fantastic legwork. I think, you know, Muhammad Ali was famous for his legwork as a boxer. I think that to be able to play the pedal part of the D bemol, the Re bemol on the D mol, towards the end, the pedal work becomes really incredibly. It's a flourish. It's like it's like a Haydn music. You know, there's a lot of water all of a sudden coming out of the organ. And it's so beautiful, and it leads higher and higher and higher and higher, and you feel, please give me space to breathe. And then all of a sudden he comes with this big minor D chord to finish it all, and you see, okay, there's nowhere more to go. I don't know, it's very personal to me, but the brilliance of a Mozart brings me to say, maybe he's not from this universe, maybe he's from another globe, and but it's only in Bach and in sometimes Beethoven that with Beethoven, whenever I hear a sound and note, there's no other note that I can hear at that place. Mm-hmm. It's not that he does or does not surprise me, but it's precisely this. Bach, on the other hand, when I hear the note, I said, aha, this is the only note that could be here. But he always surprises me. Beethoven sometimes surprises me because he goes on and on, but Bach always surprises me.
But you know, in this music, I don't know if you hear me because I don't see you anymore.
No?
No.
I hear you. I hear you.
Okay, you hear me. The interesting thing is,
you don't see me?
No, we don't have video invocation now.
Okay. Is it better now?
No.
No?
Doesn't help.
Let's see. I see you and I see the other people.
Fine. Yeah, okay, then I talk on. That's not fun. What I think in this toccata is that you see, even at the end of the fugue, the toccata idea is coming back. There's freedom which is there, the virtuosity which he writes down, and the amazing D minor ending that you would expect after such a piece as D major. No, D minor.
Exactly.
But as well, the surprise, I mean, the Studio Fantasticus, which is started coming from Italy, via Frescobaldi and Froberger to northern Germany, it's in this music should sound like somebody is improvising. It should not sound like a piece that's written down. And I think with the Frescobaldi toccata, we have a source by André Mogard, a French gamba player who heard Frescobaldi playing in Rome. And he said he was astonished that you would never know if it was improvised or a piece written down. And I think in this Studio Fantasticus, it should give the impression the creativity of the composer and the creativity of the organist should be side to side. And so maybe in a piece like this, it's not bad if the player is having the second name next to the composer, so that you say this is a toccata with Bach and Koopman. And I think any composition of a toccata should have the name of the player next to it, because I think the creativity which is important there should be really heard of. And in this toccata, which already in the beginning has different parts, different ideas, like an improvisation, then suddenly the severeness of the fugue is just shortly there, already quite quick. It goes into something like a fugato. And maybe that is not the reason why people said it cannot be Bach. It's so unusual for Bach, but we always compare Bach from the Matthäus Passion time and onwards. But if you hear the early cantatas of Bach, many people say, of course, it cannot be Bach, like Cantata 196, like Cantata 150. But why? We have no idea who else wrote this, so let's be careful. And in this case of the cantata, I feel as well the same thing. It's so unusual what you hear there. It's so unusual, the musical language. It means as well the person who is playing the piece should as well answer with unusual way of thinking, with contrast. And at the beginning, when I play the long mordents, I know it's a tradition always to play pa-da-dam, pa-da-da-dim-dum, pa-da-dam, like that. And I think on the organ, it's so difficult to make a kind of crescendo decrescendo. And with an organ like that, it gives the feeling of a mezza di voce. It gives the feeling of a dynamical way of playing the first note. And I think that's what's so important in ornaments. That's so important that when people play Baroque music, they see what is the style of ornaments. And I didn't try what some people suppose to do it different than other people, because I don't know what other people do. It's not my way to look at the computer. I wouldn't even know how to switch it on, because I have no idea about the computer. But I'm not going to listen to 10 or 15 performances and think, okay, now Koopman, how are you going to do it different? No, I feel it like that. And when I say it to people, they look a bit strange at me. They think it's not true, but it's honestly true. And this piece, when I recorded it the first time, it's really the first time I played it in my life, and I felt it ta-da-da, so naive and so not using the language of the organ. But I tried to invent different things, and I thought about what would I do on a harpsichord. On a harpsichord, I would play a longer one just to make the note longer, and as well to give that long note a little bit of a dynamical shape. And that's the same thing here. When I play some of the patches very quick, I know that the copy we have is indicating that, and people say, yeah, but is that Bach who indicated that, if it's at all Bach? So you can talk on, and there one person will say like me, yeah, it fits in the idea of the supersonic, it fits in the style of Buxtehude, so let's interpret it like that. And maybe if people played it in the time of Mendelssohn, they would maybe play it more grand or different. Who knows? And I think that's fair. That there's not one truth in interpreting a piece, but it should be convincing, and it should fit in the time when the piece was composed.
Well, I mean, you talk about Mendelssohn. In Mendelssohn's time, a lot of people felt uncomfortable with the solo pieces that Bach wrote for the cello or for the violin, and even Mendelssohn himself felt obliged to put them into orchestration and add. What I find incredible in the Bach-Koopman wedding, if I may say so, is that you do not only in the music introduce the surprise, but also in the incredible, you give a pause for breathing after the da-da-da. After that, all of a sudden, there's a feeling, maybe nothing comes, maybe this is the end, maybe it's a different, and then all of a sudden, we are relaxed with a da-da-da-da-da. I don't play the organ, so I don't know, but I very rarely have this feeling of those completely different emotions from the first three notes, which are actually, the first three notes are like a boy whistling for his girl. And then all of a sudden we go into music, all of a sudden, and what you succeed in doing, and I really go into what you say that it should say Bach, Koopman, and Bach, Gustav Leonard, or whatever, because you give it a very personal, not only interpretation, but a personal reading. It's as if you talk about musical language, which is something else I would like to take up with you. Is music a language? Is it a message? Is it clear? Is it always saying the same thing? Some people say that mathematics is a language. I don't know.
I'm a typical alpha, so I'm not the right person for for that. But I think music is certainly a language, and it's a language which want to communicate with the people listening. I feel when you play one or two, what you do, that you just have the time to watch in the audience, and then watch again. You know, it's like Buxtehude said, I don't need a theater.
Yeah.
My church is my theater. So,
but he always said that he was an entertainer. He said,
in the best word, entertainer.
Yeah.
And I think so often with organ concert as well, the organ is so far away, people don't see you play.
Yeah, up there, and it's cold.
Yeah,
it's up in the mountains.
Yeah. So wake them up, and you put a question mark. Would you question mark? And you confirm. And I think this game which is going on there, it's so special and it's so attractive. And in none of the other toccatas of Bach you find that. I mean, you find a little bit back of the atmosphere of this piece in the G major toccata for harpsichord. Yes. It's such a happy piece, but there's no toccata there. It's the astonishment of many parts played on the same time, many fingers on the same time. It's a fun part. But again, this being somebody in a theater, and I think the word is by Buxtehude, and I think this style of Students Fantastic is a real style for the theater. The surprise which is there, but the creativity as well which is there, and all those things, the communication which stops, but goes on. You have to tell a story, and you are consistent in telling the story, even if at the beginning you have no idea what's going to happen with the story.
You know, Leonard Bernstein said that the only way to talk about music is to make music. You know, whether you take this on and make it yours or not, but it truly is, in a way, I'm not sure that music, my thing with music is, it's not only it's personal, but it's also a kind of a cultural question. In one of our meetings here at U-Sophia, we were listening to Yehudi Menuhin going into Indian music. And the question was he playing Indian music, or was he playing Yehudi Menuhin playing Indian music? And I don't know if, when I say that I'm not sure that we can define music as a language, is it has a lot of things of the language. The only thing it does not have of the language is the clarity. It's a little bit like a Wittgenstein definition of music. If you want the music to be very definite, you have to call it a name before you start playing. You know, will Bach mean the same thing for somebody in an African village who listens to it for the first time? Does the cultural education that we have, even if we don't, you know, even if we only live in the Western world, we do have some kind of a cultural education that prepares us in some way to read into Bach different things. Maybe I'm wrong.
I would say if you read poetry of, let's say, a sonnet by Shakespeare or by any important poet, you might read something completely different than me. When you read it at the surface, you will miss a lot of things, but you can enjoy it. I mean, if you listen to the materials from Abaimadis, without knowing anything about counterpoint, canon technique, and rhetoric, you still can enjoy it. But if you go deeper, you enjoy it even more. And the more you go deeper, you're amazed and you're under the spell of this genius who is able to put us all in the same composition. And I think that's still something which is, of course, education. But I don't blame anybody who is just listening at the top of this and saying, beautiful music. It's a melody which brings tears in my eyes. It's fine, because music is about that as well. But next to the tears and to the emotions, I think as well the brain should do something. If you talk about an intellectual composer like Bach, I think the interesting thing is that he's an architect. He's somebody who's able to bring emotion and brains together. And one time we are more under the spell of this element or the other element, but mostly if you can enjoy the both elements, I mean, you are even more amazed about that one person was able to compose that, to tell that story to you. And then we're back to language.
This reminds me a little bit about, you know, there are some very beautiful stories about the way to learn Zen Buddhism, and one of the most beautiful ones is the one that comes to mind. There's a prince that comes to the priest and says, I would like to learn everything there is to learn about Zen Buddhism. And he says, okay. And he says, come walk with me. And they walk in a valley, and there's a river, and there's a mountain. And the priest asks the prince, what do you see? And he says, well, I see a valley and a mountain and a river. He says, okay. 10 years after that, after they have started learning Zen Buddhism, the priest says, let's go for a walk. And they go to the same place, and the priest asks the prince, what do you see? And the prince says, I don't know. 10 years later, after the prince has reached nirvana and has reached the top of Zen Buddhism, they go again to the same place, and the prince is dancing, and the priest asks the prince, what do you see? And he says, well, of course, there's a mountain, a river, and a valley. So, you know, the deeper you go into things, there are probably different phases of understanding, of wonderment, of astonishment, and then all of a sudden, when the understanding is very, very deep, there's no need of complication anymore, because it's directly from your inner understanding to the inner structure, to the inner architecture of a Bach. I do believe that Bach has probably an infinite number of levels of enjoyment. I mean, you know, I really cannot help myself laughing when I hear people start saying, Bach is a mathematician. So what? Of course he's a mathematician. Who can be a musician without being a mathematician? I mean, but Bach is also the Siciliana. Bach is also the, but anyhow, let's go into the cantatas. What brings somebody who is nice but a human being to take on himself to do the opera omnia of all the cantatas of Bach? How do you decide on something incredible like that?
You're not the only one asking that. Maybe that's the part of my being a collector, that I want complete things. I know that in the time when Gustav Wehrens and Nicolas Harnoncourt were recording the Bach cantatas for Teldec, I sometimes played it, sometimes under my name and sometimes under the name of Leonard. And I remember that I asked Leonard, why not going to do concert? And he said, it's just too difficult. On this moment, many of the instruments are not able to do it, perform it in concert. And of course there were boy sopranos, so it was a different time. And when I had recorded the Matthäus Passion for Erato, I had started already with them the negotiation. Would it be possible to record a Bach cantate? And they started smiling at me. They said, you know, no way, too expensive. Teldec, when they did it, they went twice, almost bankrupt. So we're not going to do this. Then the Matthäus Passion was a success. They sold many of the copies. And then the discussion was a bit easier. It was not yet a winning story, but it was possible. It started to be more and more possible. And then at some point they said, okay, when are we going to do it? And at that moment, I realized, talking with my friends, that many people knew certain cantatas, and I knew that they were all from the beginning of Bach's career. So the Weimar cantatas, particularly, many of the famous, like Aphostrachicus, Aus der Tiefe, Ich hatte viel Bekümmernis, Weineklagen, Sorgen, Sagen, all those cantatas, and knowing very few from the later part. So I thought it might be important not to record the cantatas in numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, like you find it in the Bachwerkenverzeichnis, but to perform them according to the period. So having all the cantatas of Weimar together, having the secular cantatas together because they are mostly very unknown, and then have the first year of when Bach was in Leipzig, which is more than a year, but the first when he made cantatas for all the Sundays, then the second year with all the famous cantatas, and then the third year, and then what was left. And to see Bach as a, I cannot say little kid, because the first cantata was maybe written around the time when he was with Buxtehude. So he was 20 years
20
old.
now, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And to see the last cantatas, which are from the last 10 years of his life, but Bach het Oog is one of them, but we don't know exactly when it was written. Then you see a person really from just grown up and being extremely genius, being able to put on paper a cantata like Aphostrachicus, one of the marvelous masterworks of musical history. And then you see him developing. You see as well in his recitatives, particularly in the second years when he was in Leipzig, to see what he did experiment there in harmony, in expression, in rhetorics. I mean, amazing. It's the Bach very few people know, because it's not the Bach which is liked too much. The sopranos in the choir don't like it, even my choir don't like it, because it's just singing a couple of tunes and not something as beautiful as all the others. But I mean, it's an incredible creative time of Bach, where you see that what he did there, experiment with everything, and then he becomes the classical Bach as we know him from the Matthäus Passion, the Johannes Passion, etc. But I think I never would have seen this so clearly if I hadn't done that more or less in chronological order. And to get the chance to do that, of course, was a miracle. And in this time, in the time now, for recording cantatas, I think nobody would do it because it's just too expensive. At that time, still the record market was in the beginning booming and then slowly went down. And but it was really my dream already from the time when Leonard did his recording and I played in them to get the chance to do that. And I mean, I recorded twice Matthäus Passion. I know I will never record the Bach cantatas again. But if somebody would ask me now, I would directly start again.
But one thing I think might be a good idea, like Deutsch did all the numbers for the Schubert works, and he did not do it according to any chronological order. Maybe we should do a Koopman numbering of the cantatas, not according to the BWV, but according to Koopman. The 22 volumes are very interesting, and they don't go exactly from the unknown to the known and back, but they I never thought about this chronological thing when I listened to them. I just said, there's a lot of surprises, things I didn't.
I think it's interesting to hear it like that, and it's another interesting thing is a good friend of mine, Bruce Haynes, who years ago as well played with me. He lives in Montreal, and he, on this moment, is making a list, and he will publish it as well, of the Bach cantatas of every movement, what is, according to him, his most beloved recording. So we will get at some point a Bach cantata, it doesn't matter what number, and you might see from my recordings this, from the recordings of my former student, Masaki Suzuki something, of Philip Herweg something, of Gardner something, and you might get a completely different view of the Bach cantatas. People might at that point, with Leonard Harnoncourt, of course, might as well discover that the recording of Harnoncourt were not done it for 15, but a little bit higher. I never saw that, but when I listened to Bruce Haynes about this, I said, hey, it's much higher. And so there's a reason behind it, because Harnoncourt had a beautiful historical oboe, which was shortened a bit. But it was at that point the best oboe available, so they decided to buy instruments at that pitch and record everything.
Wow. That's a beautiful story. I didn't. Okay, I'll do the little trick again, and I'll take it. Laurencio wants to say something. I'm going to unmute you, Laurencio. Okay.
Okay. Good evening.
Good
Sorry
evening.
for my English. My English is not very good, but I want to ask, to came back to the organ music and ask Master Koopman about the manner in which he chose the registration of the pieces.
Yeah.
How do you choose the registers? Because it's art and science in the same time. I think. What you inspire, the score, the organ that you play, or what? Okay. This is my question.
Yeah, there are many elements. One is I decided to do it all on historical organs. So the historical organ is always a fantastic teacher. It will tell you what is possible and what is not possible. And some organs you can use a lot of basic stops, and another organ you cannot do that. This is on Hamburg, on the Jacobi Church, with a beautiful Schnittke organ with pipes from the 16th century, beautifully restored by Arendt. So the organ tells you something. The other side, there is quite some information known about how people used the stops in the 18th century. So of course I base myself as well on historical information of that. And then the other thing is the ear. Sometimes the historical information is valuable, but when you listen to the organ, you think, yeah, but I still should add this because it sounds better. To give an example, if I play in Haarlem on the Bavo organ, if I play French music there, the best Koopman is the oboe with the nazar. Of course, nobody will do that. I never write any registration on the CD. But if I would record, I would do it like that. You would say, oh, a nice Koopman. It's an oboe and a nazar. So you always should, next to information, next to what the organ tells, and so look for special things, what works well on this organ. And I know my organ teacher, Simon Janssen, always said, when you do a concert, there should be one registration where the organist, the titulaire of the organ, should think, what is he using here? And some of the registrations we know from other composers, like my name in German, Koopman. Koopman published a lot of chorales, and he wrote as well the registration with that. So, of course, I look at that. I look as well in what we know about Zimmermann, because Zimmermann as well wrote some registration down. Bach didn't write anything down, so but Bach doesn't help. But sometimes he writes organopleno. Organopleno, we know what it means in Germany. Just all the mixtures of the two keyboards, all the principles, and in the pedal, reeds. So then the question is, if you play on an instrument, does this give the ideal sound to the piano, or should you add maybe a flute 4 or a flute 8? Or like in Otterborn, if I play a plenum on this beautiful reed organ, which is one of my favorite organs, if I would play just principle 8, 4, 3, 2, mixture sharp, etc., you will hear a beautiful French organ, like Tricot or something like that. But if you want to play it for Bach, you have to do what he writes in his indications for Dijon, where he writes, in the plenum should be all the principals, flutes, strings, even for the gamba, salicet, and if you do this from two keyboards, it gives a much broader sound. And I think on the reed organ, it sounds fantastic. If you try that on the Schnittke organ, it's a disaster. The wind will not do it. It just sounds wrong. And so, with all the information you have, you should use it on the right moment and take the risk, listen and use your ears and say, the organ sounds most positive like this. And so that's the way I do it. If I play a chorale partita of Bach, of course you can use everything you want for the organ. And but you have to look, is the bass better on a reed? Is the bass better on a flute? And that's the experience of an organist. And the interesting thing is, I saw once a caricature of an organist who was sitting in front of the organ, but he was dressed like a cook. He had the head of a cook, and he was with his tongue out of his mouth, really, what should I take now? Chicken, and all the stops that had name, but they had recipes. A chicken, a horse, everything, fish, and he was like that feeling. I think a very nice comparison of what an organ should do, but always that the organ be a good teacher.
Okay, I'm going to do a little trick here and take back the presentership so that we can go back into. Oh, Laurentio wants to say something again. Just a second. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. No, I want to thank you for this nice answer.
No, I mean, we are here, we are conversing, we are not lecturing or anything,
Yeah.
so everybody is welcome not only to express, but to share what we feel about every moment that is going on here. We are going to listen to the first cantata of this evening, and I chose the 162, not the 140 or the 127 that you gave me, which we will listen to later, because, well, first of all, personally, I love this cantata. It's a very special cantata for me. It sounds different. And could you tell us a little bit about, I didn't put the German text, but can you tell us a little bit about the connection between the liturgical text and the type of music that we hear?
When you quite something about the composition process of Bach, I personally believe that Bach was not the person to choose for the texts. Maybe he chose some of the texts and then he had to get authorization to use them. That's one side. Peter Wolny from the Bach Institute in Leipzig discovered that many first pages of cantatas were on different paper than the rest. And he comes to the conclusion that Bach, on the same moment, was designing the beginnings of maybe 8, 10 cantatas, just to have variety, not to have the same strings and 2 oboe bassoon for every cantata, but to have different instrumentation, different ideas. And I thought it was a fascinating idea what he found, and that explains as well why there's different papers. So Bach started it all and then went on with one. And then he took it up the next Sunday, the Monday after he performed the cantata, and then finished the cantata. I think Bach had fantastic musicians, so not all my colleagues agree with that. But I think if you write so extremely difficult music, you are not a sadist. You write music for the people who are able to do it. And maybe they sometimes said, Bach, couldn't you do it a little bit more easy? But he wrote for his people, so I think we should have great admiration for his musicians. And so often we say, but we are much better. Let's hope that we are allowed to play in his orchestra, that we were allowed to sing in his choir or be soloists. Maybe we are not good enough for that, so let's be careful. And when Bach was performing the cantatas, he had rehearsal time. The important people got, let's say the trumpeters, the soloists, they got the music, let's say Wednesday, had rehearsals, and the rest got it Friday, and there were rehearsals. They were not performing sight reading like some people say. They were really rehearsing, and quite well rehearsing, I think. And so going to a Bach cantata in the third service was early in the morning, much earlier than any single soloist at this moment would want to sing. It was this Sunday in the Thomaskerk, the other Sunday in the Nicolai Church, and it was a secret tip. Many people knew if you want to hear something very special, go to Leipzig, go to the Thomas Church and listen to this grand master. Of course, there were many people in the church who just knew that they had a good composer, they had a good chapelmeister, and maybe didn't realize that this was somebody who would write history. But the church where Bach worked, the Thomas Church, was as well a special church. It was not strange that somebody was doing the preaching in Latin. So it was a real church for intellectual people. It was a church for the people in the university. And to have a passion like Johannes, like the Matthäus Passion on Easter Friday, that was something which was in no church of Germany possible. But there, nothing was happening in the whole town except this special performance, and maybe then it took 4 hours in a very cold church. It means that when there was a preaching there in any language, the musicians went to the back of the organ, and there was a fire. They could warm themselves, and traces from the fire were found at restoration work, and then maybe go with something that made them hot into the church to perform, because with cold hands in a church which was maybe 2 degrees Celsius, of course it's for nobody possible, and it was land climate, so it could have been very cold. No heating, except behind the organ, and the people performed it. And Bach started to write cantatas, so he needed for every Sunday a cantata, was using them again, not always, sometimes rewriting or composing a new cantata because maybe he felt he could do it better. Maybe as well, like I have one information about the Johannes Passion, that he was going to perform his Johannes Passion, and then he had troubles with the church, saying that he should change things. And Bach said, then, you know, performing a passion is also a lot of work, a burden, and you don't earn any money with it. And he performed an easy work of a colleague. So he was as well someone who was easy, not the humble servant, as he always signed with his letters. I think he was not humble. He knew that he was a good composer, but he never thought that he was a Michelangelo. That we, and the generation directly after that, started to think that, of course, it's right, but in his time, Hasse, Telemann, even people like Heineken, were the same level or much more world famous.
Well, Michelangelo didn't think that he was Leonardo da Vinci, so there's always. But which brings me also to another quite interesting point, that Buxtehude wrote a lot of cantatas not for the church. I mean, the 7 famous cantatas, the Jesu Membre Nostri, was not written for the church. It was, I don't know if it was performed in the church at all.
Yeah, he wrote the Membre Jesu Nostri for Stockholm.
Yes.
And in Stockholm, the German church, which is still existing, and a beautiful small place, was used for private services by the Queen. And Buxtehude was a kind of court composer for the court in for the King of Denmark, and particularly for his wife. And Düben, who was the chapelmeister there, apparently was a composer, but not such a good one. And he preferred to buy music by others, and he did that for some time with Christian Geist. And then after that, Buxtehude was his Hoflieferant, as you would say in German.
Mm-hmm.
And so Buxtehude wrote many cantatas, sometimes in a small number of people, and they were performed in the German church. And the Membre Jesu Nostri was a present to Düben. So I think it was performed there, but it was a kind of private service, and I don't know if you could call it a real Lutheran service or something else. It's different. People talk about pietism with Bach, with Buxtehude, and particularly with the court in Stockholm. Many things still to find out to be certain about this, but mostly all of the small cantatas were written for Stockholm, and the big ones like Es wird erfreut, Es wird erneut, Es wird erfreut, Frohlocket mit Hände, those pieces like Benedictam were performed in Lübeck in the Abendmusiken, because Buxtehude was not allowed to perform a cantata on Sunday because he was just the organist, and that in northern Germany at that time the organists were much better, a much higher profile musician than the Kapellmeister. Still made that the Kapellmeister in full charge, and he could say, no, that's my work. He even said to Buxtehude, you cannot use my choir. Only at the Abendmusiken he had no power. There Buxtehude could use the choir, and was usually he could use the musicians from the town. Everything was at him. We know from Buxtehude that sometime at the offertorium in the church, where normally was an organ piece, that was the moment where his son performed a cantata or an aria. I have no idea what piece, but we know that once he had a castrata scene in there. So certainly somebody from the opera of Hamburg. He was an enterprise person, Buxtehude, because it was very modern to give the Abendmusiken. You had to enter the church with a program, and for the program you had to pay. was not allowed to enter the church without paying, with paying, because it was a church, so you could not pay as an entrance fee. But you could have everybody to give a libretto, and you buy the libretto. So that was money. Bookstore was working with sponsors to finance all the things, and he was very good in finding known but unknown people in Lübeck, but known elsewhere, and to invite them to come to sing, maybe the castrati as well. Who knows, some instrumentalists, and it's interesting to see that Bach was one of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we will listen to the cantata, the number 162, and we will then, with your permission, talk a little bit about you creating not only the Baroque orchestra, but also the Baroque choir, which we will listen to here. Okay. This is usually taking obviously much longer than I anticipated, so we are way over the 1.5 hours. I'm enjoying every second of it, and I would like to go on if it's okay with you, Tom.
Okay.
And with everybody here with us. I gave you I have to take it back again so that we can, or maybe you can do it for me, Tom, please. Would you please change the page to 10?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's as easy as playing the organ. Come on. Okay. Here we go to the art of the fugue. By the way, earlier you said that you will not think of playing Shostakovich on the clavicembalo, on the harpsichord. Shostakovich himself obviously wrote the 24 fugues for Bach as a homage to Bach. I don't know that anybody tried to play it on anything but the piano. Do you think it might have some point of interest to try Shostakovich on the harpsichord?
I have nothing against to do it, but I think normally, if it's written for piano, you have no pedal, right pedal on the harpsichord, so you might go in troubles. And so the keyboard is made so different than a piano that, and I made more this comparison to say, let's say, to play a mazurka of Chopin on the harpsichord, is to show that everybody would say you are completely mad doing that, and when people are playing Bach on the piano, we apparently think that's normal, and I think we should be careful that we play the music on the right instrument. And if somebody is doing it fantastic on a piano, I'm the last one to be a policeman for anybody else. You should do what you like, but if you say it sounds much better on the piano, then we harpsichord players do something wrong, and then we should correct.
Okay. Here we are getting to meet Tini Maso, your wife, who used to be your student and now performs with you and disturbs the ears of your children, plays together with you in the Musikfabrik. Could you tell us a little bit about the way the art of the fugue was built between the counterpoint and the due soggetti, tre soggetti, etc., etc.?
Yeah, first I should add one thing about my wife, Tini. She's as well responsible as record producer for nearly all recordings I made. So she's there to say, this is right, you should listen, I don't think it's together, etc. So she's as well in the Musikfabrik next to playing, and we play a lot of concerts together. She's very important for the whole result of the CDs, the result of the recording, because it's a teamwork between Adrie Verstein and the technician and my wife. And I know Adrie Verstein as long as I'm married, which is 35 years. So we have for a long time a good collaboration. And then playing together the other fugue, we play all the pieces together except the canons. We divide, I play 2 and she's playing 2. Because to sit there a whole evening and then to perform 4 pieces, which is nerve-wracking. And then at some point she said to me, you know, we play so well together, why don't we try to do it together? Then about the other fugue, first again a meet to put on the right place. People say, and you read it still everywhere, that the other fugue is unfinished. Bach wrote at the other fugue till he died. I think it's not true. And that's not only me, my great friend Christoph Wolff is the same opinion, and many others. We see at the writing of Bach in the other fugue that he is just in very good condition. The hand is not shaking, which we see at the last writing of the B minor Mass, where we know Bach wrote that in the 1749, and
the year before he died.
Yeah, yeah, and the other fugue, Bach was copying it. He had composed the whole thing. He was copying by hand, maybe to be able to publish it, because his writing and his corrections were not able, were easy to read by a printer. And in the middle of the copying of the work, he stopped because there were more important things to do, and he could later do that. And then a little bit later, the town council of Leipzig was already doing an audition for his successor in case Bach would die. That was the moment where Bach thought, okay, I better get the help again of the king of Dresden and Poland, because he was always at help for Bach when he was in troubles. In this case, he was in serious troubles. I mean, it was not so fantastically well behaving to an older man to have already an audition in the hope that when he dies you have a good successor. You should wait for that. And so Bach started to finish the Martins in B, the Hohe Messe as we call it now, which was the first part, the Kyrie and Gloria, was just a part of a Missa Brevis, or just a Missa Brevis, and then he enlarged it partly with music which was composed sometime short ago, sometime very long ago, like we find it in the Conservatorium, and then he added some new pieces. There you see Bach's hand not shaking in the other fugue, and now suddenly you see a hand which is more and more shaking. Bach was in bad health. Now to come back to the other fugue, the theme D minor, Bach used it as well, upside down. He could use it dotted. He could use it twice as slow, twice as quick, in triplet rhythm, and always using it upside down, so both ways, rectus et inversus. So the the normal version, and then so the interval which goes up is then going down. And he wrote fugues where the imitation of the next voice is not the normal one, but starting on a third or all kind of different things, going as well, having contrapoint against it. Hey, it looks like a theme, and then you can use against this in a slower tempo, again the theme. Carl Philipp is writing when Bach died in the Necrologue in 1754 about this work, and said his father was planning to have 24 pieces. But I believe that there's only one piece missing, and that is the contrapuntus with the three subjects as Carl Philipp describes it. But Carl Philipp was for a long time not anymore at home, and he thought the well-tempered clavier is 24 pieces, so there should be 24 pieces as well. But I think if you count well, you would go to 19 pieces. And we see Bach, and we have an autograph which is not finished, and we have a print that was done after his death, where Carl Philipp, his genius, second son, and a student like Nicolas are publishing the music, and we don't know how many copies were sold from that, but maybe not too many. And at some point, the plates where you printed, where the engravings are made from, were for sale, because Carl Philipp didn't expect that more copies should be made. I think the other fugue, as a collector, is the most beautiful printing of any Bach work existing. It's very beautifully done. Like the Tavirun 1 with the partitas for harpsichord is the last beautiful one. It's done by different hands. It's sometimes very beautiful, sometimes quite clumsy done. The other fugue is a dream to see, to look at. I'm not an owner of one of the copies. I would love to, but you need to be. You have a different profession than being a musician to buy those things. I think you wouldn't find any under 100,000 euro on this moment, but maybe.
Oh, really?
More. Yeah,
Wow.
it's very expensive, and it's not rare. There are quite some copies of the Bach prints existing.
With his signature?
No, there's no signature of Bach on it. But we know the copy of the partitas, the Tavirun 1 in Washington. We see there that Bach had changed the thing. So he was working. He was still work in progress even when it was published.
We lost you.
Oh, I see myself still.
Send video. Let's see.
I go to send a video. I see video.
Something happened.
Yeah.
We lost you. We can hear you, but we lost you. We lost the picture. Teeny knows how to do it. I think on your computer, Ton, it's beneath. We might also have some problem
The green
because of the
button down. Green button.
Ton, are you with us? Let me call Ton in a second. I have a feeling that there's some problem there. Okay. Let me see. Okay. Ton, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I cannot see you.
My wife is coming up, so...
Okay, okay. Let us go back.
Somebody like the 18th century who doesn't know how a computer works, eh? But I would say I know more of a computer than Bach, but that's the only positive thing. Yeah.
I'm sure that Bach would love to have a computer just to play with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I will take it back now for a second so that we can go and because you went to page.
I see you again.
Yeah, I don't see you. I don't see you. If you can.
My wife is coming up.
Okay. What I would suggest, Ton, is that we listen to the Fuga a due soggetti.
Yeah.
Sorry about soggetti. It should have been soggetti. I write on the computer better than Bach, but that's beside the point. Okay. So let's listen to Tini and Ton Koopman on the harpsichord. How beautiful to have a Musikfabrik all for your internal use. That was very, very beautiful. It must be fantastic to play with somebody you know so well, and probably through playing you get to know different parts and different angles of the personality. Well, I for one can go on forever in this meeting here, but I would like to respect the fact that I think that tomorrow night you have a concert, no, Tom?
Tomorrow morning I have to give a lecture at the university.
Okay.
So I have to prepare it.
Okay. So, well, let's call it the first of many more encounters, your time permitting. I enjoyed a lot. I enjoyed a lot to be able to sit next to you when you paddle away on an organ, and when you lift your hands and the choir sings so beautifully and brings a different Bach back to me than any other Bach that I used to know. And for me, the experience was was more than exciting. It was exalting. It was something that I built up a lot of waiting and a lot of expectations, and it went like Bach does. It went beyond that. So I would like to thank you very much for being with us here tonight and for allowing to share with you our understanding and our feelings about your music and your collaboration with Bach. And we'll have many more with Bob Stehude and with Mozart. You didn't speak a lot about Mozart tonight, or you did
No, it's true.
quite a lot of Mozart, but the Ton Koopman Opera Omnia is so large and so huge that we'll dedicate many more evenings to it, and I hope to have you with us as much as we can, as much as your time permits. Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here with us at U-Sophia, where minds meet online, and today the mind of Ton was here with us and produced so many beautiful tunes, tunes that created a language that spoke through the heart to the mind. And this is what U-Sophia is trying to be. A meeting of dynamic, curious, and above all, minds that are always looking for new questions and not for answers. Il ricercare e non il trovare.
Then thank you very much. It was a lovely evening, and we'll meet again. And thank you all for being there. And I go to prepare my lecture for tomorrow. It was lovely to hear as well this unfinished fugue, because I think that's the end of the other fugue, and doesn't have the time to finish. I think there's missing more than 100 bars, maybe 130 bars.
This is the 14, no?
This is the last one, yeah. They have all kind of different numbers. But I think to finish this piece, to dare to do that, I would never dare. It's too unique, this piece. And when you hear how he's transposing into all kind of tonalities, while he's going out of the 18th century into the 19th century, it remains a fascinating person, this Johann Sebastian Bach. And I'm glad I'm allowed to play some of his music.
By the way, just a little word for the end. What Bach does in the art of the fugue reminds me so much of what Mozart is doing in the number 40, where he goes from one key into the other, and it's like a huge wheel, you know, it's like the big eye in London, this huge thing that goes all over the town and brings the certain different points of view, and and he does it in this fugue in such a, well, I don't know, the numbering is from 14 to 19 or whatever, but this is the unfinished one, and I think you did, in my book, you did the right thing to finish it as you did in the middle. I mean, you know that there are many people who are afraid to touch this.
Yeah, you know, in a concert I will never perform it because I feel to play an unfinished piece, which was finished, it feels a bit strange.
Yeah.
But on the recording, of course, it should be there. And when we did the recording, it was fascinating to see how he goes into the labyrinth and gets out of it and becomes with the Bach, BRCH, etc. It's just incredible to think that one person in his mind could compose a piece like that, could make such a piece that's so complicated like it is. And while you play, when you listen to it, it seems beautiful.
It truly is. Thank you very much, Don. It's been
Thank you very much, John.
a fantastic experience, and I'll talk to you and we'll try to set up some more. I have a beautiful lecture tomorrow and a good concert tomorrow night. And again, thanks everybody. The recording will be available for everybody as of tomorrow. I will send you also the link. Tini will know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Thank you and good night from U-Sophia. Bye.
Good night.